In this video, I would like to talk about virtualization. So from the beginning in this journey that we started, we have been talking about a virtual machine and all the different benefits that they provide, which we have counted of the server consolidation, is the capability of creating multiple virtual machines on the same physical hardware, cost consideration, like to create two machines, you would have need to go buy two laptops out there to have two machines. But in the virtual environment, you just create another one and you save money that you would have bought another device. Improve of resources. Like when you're only using your computer, you don't maximize all the resources, but the more virtual machine you have, the more resources you consume. And there's so many other benefits that comes along having a virtual environment. But as right now, how our device is represented, usually we're going to have like a server, which is like in a work environment that you're going to mainly see it. You have like a desktop that you can have at home. And most of the time, us here, we are using laptop. These things usually represent what we call like the bare metal or the hardware, because like as when you don't have nothing in there, you haven't installed anything yet. It's just a bare metal, it's just your hardware, right? And the way that we are using it for the case of our laptop, for example, we usually had our hardware here, and we're going to install whatever operating system that we want. We say that the operating system is like it's an application that help other application to function. And we know that an operating system can be a Linux, it can be Windows or Mac. There's so many out there. So on top of the operating system, that's where now we're going to install our application. Like we can have HTTP, we can have Zoom is an application, Google Chrome is an application, Word that we use, Excel, WhatsApp, and all those different things is going to be application that we install on top of the operating system that we decide to use. And that is how we normally use our laptop, our different device. But in the virtualized environment, now it's going to look a little bit different. And we mainly have two types of virtualization. There's a virtualization type 1, also called hypervisor type 1, and it's going to be the virtualization type 2, also called hypervisor type 2. On the type 1, we have our hardware, as supposed to, but on the top of the hardware, we don't have those common operating systems that we usually know. The operating system here is made to create a virtual environment. And we're going to have so many of them, like ESXi is provided by a company called VMware. Hyper-V is provided by Microsoft. KVM, I think it's a Red Hat product. I'm not too sure. And Zen by Citrus. And there's so many other out there. So the operating system here is going to be our hypervisor directly that we're going to use to do virtualization. So that's where from there we can either create a Linux virtual machine or a Windows virtual or a Mac. On top of our Linux, that's where we're going to put our application that we were talking about, Microsoft Office, WhatsApp, all those different applications. Same on Windows. On the Windows machine, you can create all those applications here. So as you see with the idea of virtualization, like you will have your OS, and then here you can have for example, like one Zoom application for this Linux machine, and then you're going to have another Zoom for this Windows, another Zoom for this Mac, and all of them are on top of the same hardware, but they are virtualized separately. But on the hypervisor type 2, which is the one that we currently have on our laptop, here the operating system is still those operating systems that we were familiar, Linux, Windows, and Mac. And this is where the hypervisor now going to live. The hypervisor is an application. And the application here will be either VirtualBox, VMware Workstation, which is provided by VMware. VMware Fusion is still a VMware, but this is for people who use Mac. And there's another one for Mac that is called a Parallel Desktop. There's so many out there, other application that is playing the type 2 hypervisor. And it's on top of the application that you will have now, your Linux virtual machine or Windows or Mac. And then from there, you can install your application. So from here, a quick observation that we're going to see is the resources that this Linux machine going to get on the hypervisor type 2 is not going to be as efficient like this virtual machine on type 2. Because before this Linux machine on type 2 get the resources from the hardware, the OS going to use some of those resources, and then our virtual environment, the hypervisor type 2, going to use some of those resources as well before it gets here. So the layer in which the resources are being used is here is kind of a lot of them. But when we are in this environment, this Linux machine is getting the resources like straight from the OS, and is more efficient and is more quick, and that's quite what make the difference between the two and how the coin goes along. And virtualized environment give us on the two of them, type 1 and type 2, each have the advantage and count based on how we can see that the installation here, you install directly on the hardware, while the installation here is an application. The relationship with the OS. Here, the OS here replace your operating system. So if you were using Windows, when you're trying to install VMware, EXSI is going to remove your Windows. But here, the application will run on top of your Windows, right? Here, we are having access directly to the hardware. That's why on type 1 is quite more efficient, faster. But here, the layer, there's more stuff that go through it. The performance going to be higher here because we are dealing directly with the hardware. But here is going to be, take some issue. And these are some examples. So here, for example, I'm going to show you a demonstration. So we're going to create a virtual machine on VirtualBox. So here I'm using VirtualBox by Oracle, and we're going to create a machine. And let's call that machine sample 1, which is going to be on the VirtualBox environment. And we are creating a Linux machine, and it's going to be a Red Hat. So I'm going on next. I will go on settings, and the system, I change this to USB tablet, and under storage here, I'm trying to add my Rocky 8, and I will press OK, and I will start it. So here we are creating an type 2 environment since we are working on the VirtualBox. And we are creating a virtual machine that we decide to call a sample 1. I'm gonna put it taking some time, but it's coming. So we are going here on the next time we choose the language. Give a password, easy password, easy to remember for the root user. And I'm also gonna create a user over here. So I'm gonna start this virtual machine here on VirtualBox. In my home environment for my personal testing, I use KVM to deploy some of my machine. And we talked about on the virtualization, we said that we have also KVM as a type 1 hypervisor. And here we were using VirtualBox as a type 2 hypervisor. So creating a VirtualBox on KVM, the process is quite the same. I just want to show you the advantage and how the resources is being utilized. So I'm still using a Rocky 8, the same operating system on both of them. And yeah, I'm mentioning that I'm using Red Hat 8. And I'm going to give the name of it sample 2. So we'll finish. Get sample 2 has no character. I guess I shouldn't have a space. So, and here is going to be for us to see the difference between the two of them and how fast the hypervisor type 2 is being on deploying the operating system. As you see, we already here. Let's do the same process. And by the way, like I was saying, installing is always going to be the same, no matter where you go. The way that we learn how to create a virtual machine, or even it is going to either it's on the physical or on the bare metal, you're always following the same process. So here is done, and I can start. And as we can see on the speed of the KVM environment, the speed is way more faster than on the virtual machine, because KVM on the hypervisor type 2, on the hypervisor type 1, as we were talking here, the virtual machine is getting its resources directly from the hardware, while on the VirtualBox environment, the virtual machine need to go to VirtualBox first before he get to the OS and get to the hardware. And, there's so many process that is taking. And as we see here, on the type 1, we already way far ahead and pretty much close to be done with the installation process. So that's why you guys going to see in the work environment, company usually use hypervisor type 1. So the operating system that they're going to use is going to be, the host. They're going to set the virtualization for them so that they can get the most resources out of their hardware as possible. And it's only now that, our virtual machine on VirtualBox now is starting to give us all the packages that's going to be installed. But on the other side, we already finished with all the packages and we are just setting up the configuration of the kernel now. So I think I need to fast forward this process while I'm going to send the recording so that it's not going to take that long to just be seeing how this step is being going through. But you guys get the idea of what we are trying to demonstrate here. So as you guys can see, on our hypervisor type 2, the installation is already completed. We actually started VirtualBox first, but now on KVM that we started on second position, the installation is already finished and we can just go ahead and reboot. So you see that how the process is faster and quicker, and this is because on the hypervisor type 1, all the resources are directly being gotten took from the hardware directly, but on the type 2, there are more layers that we need to go through before everything, all the process go through. So that was the main idea on understanding the main different type of virtualization, what we get from and how all those resources are being utilized. The type 1 is going to be more suited in a enterprise environment, but on the type 2 is going to be a more suited in a home environment where you need to install your hypervisor type 2 as an application on your laptop, and from there you should be able to deploy multiple virtual machines. But the downside is going to be a little slow at utilizing the resources that your computer provide than the other one on the work environment. So I hope you guys get the idea, and from there keep having fun, keep practicing, and enjoy.